One of the words that keeps getting brought up with the brands that we work with is enterprise value. And I think it's a funny one because sometimes it can just kind of seem like a bit of a buzzword, like a corporate buzzword that you use in meetings, to like drive KPIs and blah, blah, blah. But what does it actually mean? And like, why is it important? Well, I think there's obviously like a hardcore dictionary definition to it. But I think the way that I like to understand it is when your business or your brand is in a place where it can run and it can thrive and it can continue to grow without the owner or the founder like doing anything. Like they can be completely fired from the business, and essentially the business can be an asset that is acquired by another entity, and the founder is bought out and they're gone from the equation, and products still get created, content still gets created, the product quality is still the exact same, teams still get managed, everybody still gets paid, the business still runs and still operates and still grows. And that's obviously not an easy place to get to, because the whole reason why a brand owner would make a brand is because they have a passion, they love it, and so they obviously want to be involved in the process of running the business, whether it's making the products, whether it's being the creative director, or whatever it might be. If the goal is then to exit, though, how do you get to that place of like enterprise value where you can be acquired, the business can be an asset that can just comfortably run without you? And I think what it just comes down to is people and systems. That's like fundamentally, like when you get down to like the real root of what a business is, it's people using systems. Like the people that are in the business, obviously, are they talented, knowledgeable, experienced, and are they using systems and processes that enable them to be able to do the best work that they can? Like, are they being stuck doing like really time-consuming things that could probably be automated and to be made a lot easier with a better process, which gives them more time to do something else that is actually a better use of their time? Like, have they got the best systems for their talent and for their role? And ultimately, like, are they good at sort of working together? And is everybody on board with the same mission? And I think there's obviously an understanding of running a brand that I think there's a lot of people that, run a brand that don't necessarily see it that way, or don't necessarily think about building a business as that. Once you build a team and once you equip them and enable them with good systems, when I say systems, I mean even like thinking about how to reach out to creators. Like, have you got sort of good templates and processes to be able to reach out to creators on the right channels, to negotiate with them, and like, are those processes documented so that the person handling like relations or creator management can get the best deal, can source the best creators, can look in the best places? Is that process laid out for somebody where somebody new can come into the business and just pick up where they left off, and it means that the individual person doesn't have loads of leverage over the entire running of the business? And that is essentially what somebody that would look to like acquire a business would look at. They would look at like an outside entity would come into the business and look at, okay, if I acquired this and I changed a few people, such as like the founder, or maybe like some KPIs in certain departments weren't being hit and we changed that, would everything just stop and fall apart and change if I was to do that? Or could I literally just drop another person in here? There would maybe be like a week of getting the ropes and stuff and getting into these new systems, but everything's laid out, everything's there, the processes are there, they know what they're doing. And that's obviously a tricky place to get to, because I think when you're scaling, especially when you're like bootstrapped, you're obviously doing a lot of the heavy lifting yourself in terms of product sourcing, creator management, content creation, even, managing the finances and stuff. And so being able to get to a place where you have extra time outside of doing that to then be able to start documenting and building these processes and these systems, that can be a pretty challenging thing. It obviously requires a lot of extra hours, and it also requires a bit of an infrastructure and a bit of a understanding of how to actually build a process. Like, are you just making a Loom video, like just recording yourself doing something? Are you doing it as a step-by-step document? Are you doing it as and this is, in our business, this is something that we do, which is I just think it's the best way to do it. Making an MD file with the processes and the information and just as much context as possible about the thing that you're doing, so that at any given time, rather than, like, let's say if through a process, right, you're watching a Loom video of somebody explaining how to do something and it's like 10 minutes, you might have just forgotten like one or two things, and you want to just quickly know, like, oh, well, what was the template here, or what platform does he go to do this, right, or whatever. You've got to then like scroll through the video, like find the right point where they're talking and showing that thing, and it's just a bit of a waste of time. Like, it just takes a bit of time. Whereas if you have an MD file with the entire process and the entire system that you can just drop into an LLM, you can drop it into ChatGPT, you can drop it into Claude, you can drop it into Gemini, whatever, and you can just say, how do I do X? It can just read it very, very quickly. It's just all text, it's rapid, and it can just tell you exactly what is in there. That has saved so much time for us. Like, I remember back in the day, we would have looms for everything. Like, there would be so much sort of context packed away in these like lengthy videos, and also like lengthy process documents that just take ages to scan through, versus having an MD file where you can just ask any LLM any question about the process that you need help with, and then it uses the context of the MD file to be able to answer. So it's obviously based on reality, and it doesn't skew outside of that. So like, there's an example of like, what process are you using to make the process, which I think is an interesting one. So there's obviously that, when it comes to making enterprise value, but then there's also the people, right? There's obviously, like, if you're trying to create enterprise value, create a great team, and create the processes that enable that team to thrive. I'm going to see if we can just set up here. Let's see what I don't know if the lighting's going to be alright. Just sit here, but we will see. There's obviously where you find these people, right? There's obviously a process that goes into acquiring this talent, finding this talent, and are you just getting them from Upwork or Fiverr? Are you using an agency to recruit? Are you recruiting through LinkedIn? Are you recruiting through Twitter, right, or X? There's obviously lots of ways that you can do it, but do you have a solid system in place that enables you to actually get good talent? Like, are you just going off what they say in a first interview, or a bit of experience that's on their CV, which most people can just fabricate and lie about anyway, and just go, yep, let's get you on board, and then you find out like 3-6 months down the line that actually, like, we could have done better here, or there were certain things that I probably could have put in place in the recruiting process, in the interviewing process, that would have exposed this, and I probably would have gone with a different candidate had I done so. So I think that's interesting. Obviously, it's something that's kind of come up because I think once you start pushing beyond 100k months and starting to really think about pushing the boat into like 8 figures and beyond, you start to really understand the idea that you can't do it all yourself, right? You've got to build a team, you've got to have departments, you've got to make sure that there are really solid processes and things going on within each department. that are obviously meaning that you could just step away and everything would still run as it was, and there would be no downtime, there would be no, I guess, failing of the business. So that's obviously an interesting one. Another one that we've been sort of dabbling with as well, I guess me personally really, sort of speaking to team members and also friends about it, is how do you balance actually building a business and being able to put enough of yourself into the business. I'll explain what I mean by that. But how do you balance building a business and fitness, right? Getting jacked, getting fit, pushing the boundaries of your health and making sure that everything is, you are heading in the right direction when it comes to, certain things that you're achieving in the gym or outside of work. How do you ensure that you are giving enough to be able to actually not just maintain fitness, but also improve it? But then are you actually leaving enough of your soul in the tank to put into your business, right? I guess if you have a business that, again, you might already have low, really solid enterprise value. You might have lots of really great systems that really, really reduce the thinking time, and you can just robotically just tick off tasks and just crack on with it, and you don't really need to feel creative, or you don't really need to strain yourself too hard and focus. You can just almost robotically crack on with it. But if not, you obviously need to be present, you need to put a lot of effort in, you need to grind, right? And if what is the benefit really of getting a sub 3 marathon, or a sub 1 hour high rocks, or a sick time in an Ironman, or pushing through PBs and weightlifting or whatever, or doing all these things, when realistically the thing that is going to get you the financial freedom, the location freedom, the time freedom, or certainly the option of those last two, is going to be your business. How much of your daily energy and your soul are you actually going to give to your business? And by pushing, to get fit and to, obviously do what you need to do on the, in the gym and the fitness side, how much can you give to that doesn't then burn into what you need for the business? For me, especially earlier this year, I was really, really pushing, running, and, I was doing 2 hours a day. I was in a really, really good routine and absolutely smashing it. But whenever I would have a really hard workout and I'd be pushing the strain on the whoop every day and hitting the records of PBs on my runs and blah, 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 I would come back and I'd be right, I've got to do 5 hours of deep work here. Obviously all these different processes in terms of context switching between email, ads, landing page work, again, different strategies around enterprise value and calls with this person, sales call, and have to do quite a lot of different things where it requires context switching and focus. I'd be I've got 5 hours and I'm knackered. My mind is knackered, my soul is tired. I want to just rest a little bit, get some food, and just, have a few hours to almost just recharge, not just physically, but just mentally as well, because obviously anyone that works out regularly knows that working out isn't just physical. You're also battling your mind, you're also trying to push yourself, and it's mentally taxing as well. And I just found myself not really being as productive, or not really getting as much done, or not producing the quality of the work that I wanted to produce, right? I didn't have as good ideas, just felt some of my soul was just a little bit taxed. And it just posed the question, is it possible for me to be an absolute beast and get after my fitness goals and also, attack and smash my goals in my business? And I don't think it is possible. I think there is a bit of a compromise, and you have to choose, I wouldn't say one or the other. Maybe you can put 20% of your day in terms of your energy and your soul into getting after it, working out and fitness and stuff, and then the remaining 80% for your business. But when you're going 50-50, or in some cases I was because I was working out in the morning, that's when sort of my energy is at the highest, I was obviously putting loads into the gym, and I'd come back for the afternoon and just be like, I'm like half as capable as I should be in doing all these tasks and doing all these things, which I think that's an interesting one. I think obviously if you get to a place where you have built enterprise value, everything can just completely run without you. There's no reliance, or there's no major sort of bottleneck if you need to just work out for 2 hours and try to train towards something, and maybe you've got a marathon in the works, or you've got a fight, or you've got an Ironman or whatever, and you need to like really lock in and sweat and push a lot for it. Everything can still run without you. Like, awesome. That's obviously the place to be. But I think until you get there, until you've actually got that team in place, got those processes and systems in place, I just don't think it's possible. And obviously for me, like, I love what I do. I love my business. I love the way that it's set up. We're slowly building the team. We're building our processes. Like, we've already got great systems and great processes, and like, it's a great business, but I love what I do. I don't really want to be able to just be fired from the business and step back. Like, I really like to be involved. I like making landing pages. I like making ads. I like managing email. Like, I like doing all of that stuff. And so I need to be present. I need to be like 80 to 100% into that. Which, everybody's different. Some people might have different goals. Some people might want to do it differently, but certainly that's the way that I am. So yeah, a bit of a yap session. Just some interesting things that have been on my mind, and also again around the enterprise value thing. Certainly things that have been coming up in conversation. Some of the brands that we're working with are getting into that stage where they need to really start thinking about that. They're getting to a scale where things are really pushing hard. And just one thing as well, like on that, one of the biggest things, just a bit of a caveat, like a switch into that, is one of the biggest things that has got them into this place, which I can't stress the importance of enough, in terms of like actual e-commerce operations and the way that you are running an ad account. What has enabled us to get to that scale where they need to start thinking about those is the new audience percentage reach. That is honestly, like, it's certainly in our app, like when we connect brands to our app and there's a health score and we sort of see like where the health of the business is, one of the most important metrics is the new audience percentage reach. I honestly think that your ad account should be like 80 to 90% just pushing to new people. Like, you should almost exclude your existing customers, right? Like your Klaviyo master email list, connect it to Meta Ads, set it as your existing customers, and you should just exclude that from pretty much everything. There's only like really, really nuanced, like rare cases where you should have it still in there, but honestly, most of the time, I just think you should exclude it, and you should have your ad account just purely as a new audience pusher and a new audience reach, and just optimize towards trying to reach as many new people that have never heard of your business as possible, and just let the organics and let the email marketing and also Google branded, let that do the work of the retargeting, bringing people back, and the returning customer rate. And you can easily get a solid 30+% returning customer rate through doing that without having to like re-spend. Let's say if your sort of CPA is like $30, for example, and your new customer CPA is like $40, like this is a massive chunk of that you are spending to re-engage existing customers that probably would purchase regardless of whether they saw an ad or not. Like, they would purchase through an email, they would purchase organically, they don't need much budget whatsoever through an ad. And so if you can just have the majority of your ad account geared towards reaching new people, that really is one of the biggest things that I can sort of attribute to being able to push and scale so quickly. But yeah, again, bit of a yap, bit of a brain dump, some things that have been going on lately, some thoughts I've been having, and yeah, I'll catch you in the next one.